welcome to the Lowdown Mortgage Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the topics that directly impact the evolving originator. I'm your host, Connor Bartley. Bam! And joining me today is someone who has built his business on the foundation that most loan officers don't have, a processing background that gives him a technical edge that agents can feel really in every transaction. He's leveraged social media and vulnerability over polish to generate leads from people that have never met with him. And he's shifted his identity from loan officer to business owner by running his own P&L and starting to think in systems and not just transactions. Adrian Hall, welcome to the Lowdown.
Yes, thank you for the introduction and thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. I'm excited to have this conversation. I know anyone listening will gain a ton of value from it. And so before we get into like the strategic, tactical, all that kind of stuff, let's just start with the beginning. Like, I'm always interested to hear how people got into the business because the mortgage industry, it's funny like that. Very rarely did we seek it out. It finds us. So I'm just curious, how did you get into mortgage?
Yeah, no, that is it. So my honest friend-to-friend black and white answer is I wanted to find the highest paying job in finance that didn't require me going back to college. Because at the time I was working at a credit union as a teller, and it was a decent job. It's a living, but it wasn't what I knew my potential was. So started there, worked my way into consumer lending, reached the mention I just said of like, what do I do next without having to go back to school? Saw mortgages as a natural pathway, ended up as a processor, did that for a few years. One thing led to another, that led to another, and here I sit today.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out. The mortgage industry really does pay pretty well. And there's kind of a double-edged sword with that, I think. But it definitely is a business that seems to get your hooks, it's hooks in you. And it's very hard to leave and it's very hard to move on from. When people ask you today about what works in your business, like what's the first thing that you tell them?
So the thing that works in my business, I guess the first thing I would say is to treat it, number one, like a business, but when you're interacting with people, treat them like humans. I feel like a lot of businesses, I mean, okay, let's just be real. Nobody likes to be sold to. We don't like ads. We don't like billboards. We don't like people knocking on our front door trying to sell us stuff. And then when we get a job where that is the meat and potatoes on how we earn our living, we do those exact same things. We want to get a billboard. We want to meet somebody and immediately give them our business card. That for me is not the right approach. And so that's kind of how I've always approached everything that I do is like, I want to get to know you as a person. Who are you? What are you into? What's your hobbies? What are your kids or no children or pets? What is life for you? And if business comes up, it will naturally get there oftentimes because they get nervous and they bring it up themselves.
Sure, yeah. And I know you're taking some of that to how you interact with people on social media, and that's really been a catalyst for your business. You're leaning on it, and I guess if someone were to ask what's your strategy or why does it work for you, like how do you explain that?
Okay. So I joke that I'm a social media loan officer because when I first got started, like the actual story of me becoming a loan officer, I had a processing job. I did not like it. I don't think I was a very good processor. I've had better ones than me since then. And I decided to become a loan officer assistant. Went out there, got that role. About 8 days later, got let go and found myself at home with a mortgage originator license and a resume and said, let's just see if we put these together, what happens. I had a little bit of savings for the first time in a long time, so I could bear being commission only for a second, because as you know, it takes effort and it takes money to sustain while you get closings going. And the first few months, I was leaning into my sphere of influence. Who do I already know? Friends, family, people I met at random networking events. And I quickly realized that was not sustainable. I'm going to run out of people. And I also didn't want to do what a lot of other loan officers do, which many ways to run a business, but I didn't want to do a bunch of lunch and learns and let me like tell me about your business. I didn't want to do any of that stuff. So I chose to get on social media because that's what I was already doing at home anyway. It started by going to like the events tab and literally just looking for things to do that were related to the industry. Like the amount of CE classes I went to for realtors, despite not needing the CE, anything that was available, I did. And then I started to recognize communications happening on here. Like I'm finding out about this because somebody's bothering to put something on here. Let me connect with that person. Let me connect with who they're interacting with. And I spent the greater part of about 3 years not just adding people, but intentionally, if we had ever been anywhere near each other, you need to know who I am. I'm going to add you. I'm not going to comment. Also, I'm not going to message you and tell you, like, hey, we should get together. I'm not going to comment and tell you I'm a loan officer. I'm just going to talk to you because I'm introverted and I don't want to brag about myself and be like, oh my God, work with me. Because I didn't have much to offer. I was new. So it was literally that, like connecting with people's birthdays and talking about Halloween. And I made a Facebook post today that the question was, when did you realize that Santa wasn't real? And start conversations like that. And so people started engaging with me. They started just thinking of me as a friend who later they found out did loans, who now they trusted to do loans because we're friends. And I watched my business kind of go from maybe it was on track to be about 5 or 6 million a year to 15 to 20 to 30, and it's never been less since then.
Wow. And so is there a platform that works more than another, or is it just kind of find what you're comfortable on and stick with that?
Mm. For me, Facebook is my meat and potatoes. I also think Facebook is not dying, but you go there if you want political drama. So I'm starting to move towards Instagram and also LinkedIn, where you and I connected with each other. My, I guess, advice and what I told myself and what I tell others is the correct social media platform is the one you're actually going to use. Like, I don't use Twitter, I don't use X. That's just never been my lane at any point. So I'm not on there. I have a account to hold the domain name, so it's all unique or all brand across the entire web, but I don't use that. I use Facebook, I use Instagram, I use LinkedIn, and then whenever I feel like making a reel for any of those three platforms, I use TikTok to post that also.
Yeah. So when we were preparing for this and just kind of talking in advance of recording, you mentioned something to me that I shared with you. That I was a little, I guess, vulnerable with this or uncomfortable, but that you make a point to really pay closer attention to like the personal content that someone is putting out there and like the friends and family and things like that versus the business content. And like just transparently, I get uncomfortable with that because a lot of times I don't feel like I know that person that well. What's my business, liking something with a picture of their family in it? I don't know. It just feels like not my place. But I'm just curious, like clearly, that's where you feel comfortable and it's working for you. I mean, why have you kind of taken or adopted that as the way you interact?
Well, I think for me, it roots to what I originally said of nobody likes being sold to, myself included. So I don't want to be on like Facebook as an example, and the only time I'm talking to this person is when they had a closing or when they're asking for advice on a deal they're on. It just feels like I'm waiting for them to slightly open the door for me to bust open and say, hey, by the way, I don't like that. I don't like being that. I don't like being a part of that. And so I kind of thought about it because I had the same vein, like background on me in social media prior to becoming a loan officer. When I was in processing, I was not using social media. I had been on it as like, a teenager, college years, all of that. And then I took a sabbatical and got away from it for a few years. And then when I got back into it, I recognized like I'm doing this for my job. And so I lent that way for a minute until I started to see what I just mentioned. And so I guess for me, I just had more fun talking to people about the stuff they're posting online. Because the original reason I backed away from social media is I got tired of seeing what they were talking about online. I got tired of seeing the vacation and the new car and whatever was going on that I wasn't doing at the time. And then I really, really kind of psychologically dove into myself. And I'm like, well, first off, if somebody's doing well, great for them. That's amazing. I need to applaud them for that. But also, they're posting it because they want people to see they are doing something, mundane or not. And so rather than just waiting on them to say something that can directly benefit my paycheck and disregard their entire existence and then say I'm in a relationship business, did the latter, I did the former, and I said, let me just talk to you about what you're talking about. You want to talk about your kids? You want to talk about seeing this concert? You want to talk about this new restaurant? That's what we're going to talk about. And then I became, in my just opinion and from perspective, I enjoyed it more and I became more real to people I was talking to because I knew stuff about them. So when we were getting together for the first time, we already knew each other. It wasn't one of those awkward, they're waiting on the pitch. I was the guy that was doing fun stuff and congratulating them for doing fun stuff.
Yeah, I love that, and it makes total sense when you talk it out. So taking that approach has really led to some conversations, relationships with agents, and things like that. And I'm just curious, when an agent asks the most difficult question, right? Like, what's different about working with you, or why should I work with you? What's different about your answer to that?
Okay, so if somebody walked in this room right now and asked me that, the first question I'm going to ask is, why do you want to work with me? Like, half the time, I feel like people are quick to just say, this is what makes me great. I don't know what that person needs. So why are we talking? You took this meeting. Why are you here? Let's talk about what you run into before. Let's talk about some of the issues before. Let's talk about that stuff because I can address that directly. And then we can talk about some of the things that makes me different. And the main one for me above everything else, because like, let's be real, we all have great rates. We have all the products, all the solutions, whatever you want, we can come up with it, no matter who you are as a loan officer. But for me, part of my processing background and part of the relationships I built online, I am a person. I view everybody I work with as a person, and the solutions that I come up with are rooted in human relationships and human decisions. Like a realistic one, I know there's a builder, actually, there's a few builders I work with, but one particular that I have in mind, we offer a promotion if they use us, money towards your closing costs or your rate buy down. And I see lots of people, even in my own team, they kind of latch onto one and they hold on to that. And the first question I always ask is, which one does the buyer want though? Do they want a lower interest rate or do they want more money in the bank because they think they're going to be putting up a fence or they need moving expenses or they're breaking a lease? Like, why are we doing this? More of that and less of just, here's the product we have. How great is it? So, way to answer the question is I try to pay attention to what the need is and not what the solution is.
Sure. And when you think about like the relationships that you have and the agents, I mean, what I find is something in common a lot of times with originators that are in this top 20%, like yourself. What's unique is it seems counterintuitive, but it does feel like there's a little bit more selection in the process of which agents they work with.
Mm.
And you don't have to go deep into detail about that, but I'm just curious. I mean, is social media kind of helped with somewhat that selection process, or kind of help you see who's for you and maybe who wouldn't be?
Tremendously. So I think it works both ways. First off, there have been people who have chosen that they don't want to work with me for many reasons. It's to be transparent with the internet. I don't post political stuff. I don't post religious stuff. Anything that is perceived controversial, I stay away from. Even if it's trending things, like when Cracker Barrel changed their logo and everybody was making all of these memes about messing with their logos, my hands were off that one. You all can have that conversation by yourself. I try to stay approachable by everybody. Some people have recognized maybe I'm not a good fit because I am more extroverted, although I'm not an extrovert, but they think I am. Or I am this or I am that. For me, in my world, I see the same thing of like, for instance, if a referral partner, all they do is bash online how all of these deals go south and it was great till this person messed up, the title company did that, the lender did that, the appraiser did this. I'm not your match because my reputation is more important no matter how many deals you do and how low you could be to me. I don't want one to go sideways, my fault or not, and then I am burned down forever. In the same vein, though, I've seen so many other people where like they have just interesting qualities about them and maybe they don't even realize it. Like one of my friends who's also a realtor, she was a school teacher for many years and she knows how to educate. And so she got the confidence all on her own to take that and then go to YouTube and create a YouTube channel where she's educating people not only on the home buying process, but on the state, on the city, on housing in general. And it comes off so natural, but it wasn't to her. And so me seeing her online and getting to know her online, I was able to say, hey, you don't see this, but I see a lot of people on the internet. I'm telling you, this is something different. This is something special. You need to nurture that because that is a quality about you that will make you stand out because it's already standing out from somebody who's chronically online all day long.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a phenomenal quality of yours to be able to recognize those things in someone and then to be bold enough to call that out and share that with them. Like, I mean, it amazes me how many people don't do that, but I think that that's a really great quality. So, anyway, that's just me
Thank you.
gushing on you for a second. But so you've got the agent side of things, and then you've got the borrower and the person that you're helping get the loan. When you think back over your career, is there, one or two stories that have really just stuck out to you and have served as a reminder of, hey, this is why I just love what I do?
Okay, I have a very different story for this. It was the
Okay.
first one that came to mind, so I'm going to run with it. Early on in my career, I learned never make a decision for somebody.
Hmm.
There was a buyer who, like, she made about $3,200 a month, pretty decent income for here in East Tennessee, but not millions. We know that. We have calculators. And she built a house. We're getting up towards closing. She was going to save up the money. I pre-approved her based on the money she was going to save, and automatically she was short. Very clearly, she needed like 10,000. She had 3,000. You make $3,000 a month. If you save every penny, that's not 10,000. We had a problem. And I know that I went to somebody in my office at the time and I was like, hey, what do I do? Like, this is a problem. I'm a newer loan officer. And they pretty much had the attitude of just walk away, just like deny it, move on. It's dead. Don't try to rescue it. I went to her and I appealed at a human level and I'm like, hey, so you know you're buying a house. This is not a surprise. You know you're building a house. You know we talked about the numbers. What is your plan, my friend? Like, I want to get you all the way there. What is it? And something changed in that conversation for her because I think she was viewing me transactionally up until that point, and then it shifted to her viewing me as a partner. And she literally was like, okay, so how much do I need again? Okay, here's what I'm going to do. And I don't remember the exact specifics. It's been about 6 years now, but I know she immediately started working overtime. Her husband, who is not on our loan, he had a paid off car that he got a loan against, did it exactly by the book so that we could source it. He worked overtime. He gave her his paycheck. Like they came up with this $10,000 in about 10 days, sat at that closing table, and right now they still have that house at this moment. So not only does it remind me of this is why it's important because that house changed the legacy of their family. They have been there over half a decade, and like their child who was young is in high school now. But at the exact same time, that's why I don't need to take it for granted and don't just see them as numbers and people and data and paperwork. If you tell somebody what they need to accomplish, if they're gritty enough and determined enough, they'll do it. You just need to make sure that you can help them and guide them do it in a way that's going to benefit their future.
Good on you for not giving up on somebody, man. I love that story. Now to transition a little bit towards like the business side of things and just you as a loan officer and the way you've built your business. I said in the introduction that you've kind of transitioned from thinking of yourself as a loan officer to more of a business owner's mentality. What inspired that or what got you into that state of mind? And why has that been important to you?
Yeah, so for me, I'm a why person.
Mhm.
Like, I didn't do well in high school and I failed math the whole time because I never really got on board with the whole you do the equation this way because this is what you have to do to get the answer. I need to know the why to get to the answer. And so I don't know that I even sought it out. I think it just naturally happened where in my career, I didn't like being told just do this. Like when I was a processor, one of the things that my leadership at the time told me was just read your findings. End of sentence. Just read your findings. And I'm reading this like, what is that? 16-page document that you can also change the result if you put something in the computer and you don't even know what's correct. And it caused me over, after a lot of rolled eyes and grief and complaining to myself to say, okay, I need this paycheck. So how do I learn it? And I started looking into the background of like, does AUS exist to start with? What are the things they look at? They talk about the risk score. What exactly is that? Help me figure out all these puzzle pieces so I can paint a whole photo. And so when it came time for me to be a loan officer, I had that similar approach of like, at first, I guess the first few months or so, I was told, here's the rate sheet, price your loan, lock it, have a great day. And that's what I did. And I was learning products and learning sales and procedure and operations and all of that. And then I started getting recognized for pricing all of my loans incredibly well every single time, never taking pricing exceptions. And then that question came up of like, what are you doing differently? And I was like, well, I'm doing what I was told, which is do it this way. But hold on, what is different about that? Why are other people doing this and I'm not? And it helped me realize that it's a tool. Like you aren't giving somebody a bad rate at any point ever. You're giving them the rate that they qualify for. But if maybe you need to just sharpen your knife a little bit in order to make the cut, then that's what this is. And so when I started to view things like that, it built on what I already had and it just kept compounding from there for me, basically reaching a point of I don't want to know why a loan isn't approved. I don't want to know why this issue's coming up. I want to know the background on how we got to this moment. What is causing it? Not this is the answer, but rather this is the journey to get there. And so I guess to answer your big question, I rambled for a second. Shifting from my loan officer brain to more of the branch manager role brain, which I've only been doing for a year and 3 months at this point, it was rooted in that. I made the move because I was recognizing that I wasn't being told the backstory anymore on like why we can't afford rent, why we can't afford hiring, why this, why that. We hear margins are compressing, compressing from what to what, and what's causing it. If I know that stuff, I will be an even better loan officer and I'll fight to protect it, but I need to know that. So for me, it was more or less just being stronger at what I'm doing and not necessarily because I have to have the control or the answers.
Yeah, I think that's a phenomenal call out. There's a lot of discussion in the industry about transparency over the last couple of years and, layers and what have you, right? And there have been a lot of enemies created, but I think at the root of it all is it's just people want to know why, they want to know the details, and if they can find, if they find out you're not giving them all the details, it creates a little bit of a rift. Maybe not for everyone, but for some. And I think that's something that a lot of companies need to be aware of, really. But I guess moving on from that, if you're to think 5 years in the future, what does winning in this business look like for you 5 years from
Hmm. So 5 years from now, first off, winning for me is sustaining. I want to grow, but I also recognize if like applications are going down nationwide, houses are sitting on the market because they're not selling, and I am stable, that means I'm growing, and I need to view it as such. So I guess 5 years from now, winning for me is having the time on my schedule to do what I want when I want to do things like this and not be drowning in a fire every single hour of every single day. Being able to be a trusted name, not just a loan officer, not just my friend or the person that in some situations, they buy my marketing stuff or they sponsor my whatever. I want to be the person you call because Adrian's the best. My name is most important. Alphabetically, it comes on top of a lot of other people's. I want it to stay there in their minds as well. But I think the biggest thing above all that, also speaking as not only a loan officer, but as a manager, is I want to change the transparency, like you mentioned. I don't think that anybody in my past didn't want to tell me what was going on or didn't want to be transparent. They just didn't realize they weren't doing that. And so oftentimes, and maybe to a fault, I'll share with my other loan officers, my team, all of this, like, this is why things are the way they are. This is why we were able to do this here and not there. I had to get a couple iPads for a builder account, and I explained how I got the iPads and how I set it up because I want them to have everything on the table, even if they don't need it, so that they know they have it in case one day they will. That's what I think my future will look like in the next 5 years is just being here and being stable.
Yeah, love that, man. And so, as we wrap up here, I mean, is there any advice that you would give to originators as they try to grow on just, steps they could take or a mindset they should adopt that would really just get them started?
Mm. So people, you hear the phrase run your own race. And I believe that, but I had to frame it a certain way. And I wish somebody had told me this way back in the beginning. Social media is the thing everybody wants to be on. I mentioned earlier, like, do the platform you're good at, but also take that run your own race mentality of like you're competing against yourself. If you see somebody who had a closing, don't care. Like, comment, like, be a part of it. That's great. You never had the client, you never had the closing, you never had the application. It was never yours. It is a done deal. It is something that happened many months before. Even if you just met with this person and they said they're going to give you all their leads, even if, like, doesn't matter what the reason is, pay attention to what you're doing and what's important to you. For a long time, if somebody was starting to discourage me, I would push that lovely mute button and make them go away for 30 days so that I could focus on what was important to me and what was important to my business. So I guess all that to say, Literally, unless they're paying your bills, you're the only one that matters. You need to be aware. You need to listen. You need to take advice. You're not the pro, no matter how many years or thousands of closings you have under your belt. But also, last year, that's the number you're trying to beat because you know what that paycheck was. And the year before, same thing. Focus on what you're good at, be open to your blind spots, and improve that as you go.
Yeah. Great advice, man. Like just abundance mentality, stay focused on what you're doing. I think that was a great call out about if you see the closing that started months ago, right? That wasn't something that took place overnight that they just excluded you from. That was not something that you were a part of. So I think it's a great reminder. Adrian, I just want to say thanks for joining the show. It's been awesome having you on. And I just appreciate all the great insights that you've shared. Of course, as as the host, I'll be cheering you on from here on out and keeping an eye on you. But just thanks for joining the lowdown. It was great having you.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Absolutely, thanks.